I was going to film outside this morning, but as you can see, there is a pretty significant rainstorm going on. In fact, I've even got a chair in the pool. So yeah, we'll be filming inside this morning. I'm not going out in that mess. Yum, delicious goodness. Good morning, y'all. Thanks so much for clicking into this video. My name is Lori, and on this channel, Landlord Life, I share everything that comes along with being a buy and hold real estate investor, and that includes being a landlord. Now, at this point in my real estate adventure, I only invest in single family homes. I don't own a ton of apartment complexes or, anything like that. I don't own any multifamily properties at all. I only have single family properties, and I really enjoy managing them. But today's video is not about that. Today's video is about the one thing that you absolutely must have if you are going to be a real estate investor. There's no two ways about it. There's no difference in opinion. It's just absolutely necessary. You've got to have this one thing if you're going to be a successful real estate investor. Now, don't get me wrong. It takes a lot of different things to come together to have success as a real estate investor. But a recent comment exchange I had with a YouTube viewer. Now, this comment exchange did not even happen on my channel. It was on the Bigger Pockets channel. I watch a lot of their videos because they are really seasoned real estate investors. I agree with a lot of the content that they put out there, but not all of it, and that's okay. And this commenter had replied to one of my comments that I had left on one of the Bigger Pockets videos. And in my comment, I don't remember exactly what the video was about. I think it was something about, what you can accomplish in owning real estate. And owning real estate and becoming a full-time real estate investor has been really a life-changing thing for me and my family. And it's been something that we have really, really enjoyed. Even though it's not always easy, I really, really enjoy it because it allows me to live the life that I want to live and not the life I thought I had to live working 9 to 5 for somebody else, because that's just not where I belong. For me, in my household, in our family, our real estate investing portfolio allows us to live our boat life. If you check out any of my accounts, you'll see that I have 3 different channels. One is this Landlord Life, where I talk about everything real estate, investing, and being a landlord, my experience and the good and bad and all that stuff. The other channel is Life with Lori, and that's just kind of my vlogging channel where I talk about all the different things going on in the world that have nothing really to do with real estate or my boat life, because that's my third channel, is Boat Life Lori. Now, the boat life is something my husband and I planned for more than a decade. It didn't just happen overnight, far from it. It took years and years and years to make that possible. And in our plan, the real estate investing was the last piece of the puzzle to bring into our financial life that was going to make that boat life possible. And it worked out for us. It worked out for us really, really well. Now, the comment that I had made on this Bigger Pockets video was that we used real estate investing to produce the income we need to enjoy our boat life. And this particular commenter took issue with that, which, don't misunderstand me by any means, I have no problem with. Everybody can have a different opinion, and I am absolutely okay with that. They don't have to agree with mine, and they can tell me they don't agree with mine. That is absolutely okay. So we had this little comment exchange going on back and forth, and then I realized the perspective he was coming from. And although I don't agree with it, I still respect it. It's still his opinion. It's still valid in his world. It doesn't have to change mine to be incredibly valid in his world. So that's all good and fine. We can disagree. We can agree to disagree, whatever. Live your life. I'm living mine. It's all good. But that got me to thinking about how that plays into, and that is an example of what the number one most important thing you have got to master if you're going to be a real estate investor is. And it might surprise some of you because the financial planning you need to do and have in place to become a real estate investor is significant. That is a huge challenge for a lot of us to overcome. It's really significant, but it's not the most important thing. The network of businesses you need in order to support your real estate investing business is extensive, and that's not an easy thing to develop either, but it's also not the most important thing. The most important thing you need to master to become a successful real estate investor, especially if you're going to be a self-managing landlord, is A really thick skin. That's it. More than anything else, you've got to find a really thick skin. That is hands down the most important thing you're going to need to develop to be a successful real estate investor, and especially if you plan to self-manage your properties and be a landlord. You've got to have a thick skin, and let me tell you why. That comment exchange I had on YouTube on the Bigger Pockets channel is a microscopic example of why you need to have a thick skin if you're going to be a real estate investor, if you're going to be a landlord. For some reason, and I'm not even going to get into the reasons, I'm not even going to get into whether they're valid or not, because it doesn't matter what I think of the reasons, but in my experience, people finding out that you're a landlord for a living and you live well from being a landlord is offensive. It's somehow considered to be an immoral job, or I don't know, something like that. I don't know if immoral is the right word, but it's, I have found that sometimes people think you have to be immoral and unethical in order to be a landlord, and that could not be further from the case. And most of these judgments, in my experience, have come from people who have actually never been a landlord, but they've probably been a tenant somewhere along the way. I can only suspect that somewhere in their life they have felt victimized by a landlord. I don't know. I don't know where it's coming from, but it's not uncommon. It is not uncommon for people to assume that you have to be unethical and immoral and an uncaring person in order to be a landlord. I don't find that to be the truth, and I have learned over the years that I'm not going to change anybody's mind about that. It's just, I'm not going to change anybody's mind about it. So I don't try. I manage my properties from a very ethical and moral perspective. I am very good to my tenants. I respect my tenants. I am so incredibly grateful for the people that rent my houses. They are very important people in my world, and I treat them as such. If that makes me unethical and immoral in someone else's eyes, there's nothing I can do about that. So if you're gonna be a landlord, you gotta have a thick skin, because people will judge you as an unethical, immoral person simply because somebody decided they wanted to rent a house from you. So that's one reason why you're gonna have to have a really thick skin. Now, another reason why you're gonna have a really thick skin as a landlord, especially in my situation, because I do buy single family homes in neighborhoods and I rent them out in neighborhoods. That means they come with neighbors. And you can choose the tenants that live in your house. For each of my houses, every time one of my houses is for rent, I have multiple tenants put in applications. They're asking to live there. They want to live there. And based on the numbers and where the details fall, I get to choose the tenant that is most qualified to rent that property. And then I know who I'm going to be working with in that house, who's going to be living in the house for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, whatever. I get to choose that person. I get to choose that relationship with them. What you don't get to choose is your neighbors. And even though you're not living in that house, if you're the landlord and owner of that rental property, those are your neighbors too. Those are your neighbors forever. Your tenant could come and go. In my experience, most of my tenants rent for a couple of years and then they go on to buy their own homes and become homeowners. But the neighbors that live around my rental properties are still my neighbors in those rental properties. And let me tell you, in my experience, they don't like finding out that you are not moving into that house when you buy it, that you are rehabbing it, remodeling it, and turning it into a rental property. Does not make them happy. In fact, I have one house that is next to another rental property. I don't own that rental property. I only own the one. Somebody else owns the one next door. And they were so disappointed and so upset when they found out that I had bought the house next door and was also going to use it as an investment rental property. So you don't get to choose the neighbors. The people who live in the same neighborhood as the house you chose are the people who live in the same neighborhood as the house you chose. And most of the time, they are fantastic neighbors. But I have often found that when they find out that you're rehabbing the house and remodeling the house and you're going to use it as a rental property, you're not going to be living there yourself as an owner, they're pretty disappointed. They're not happy about that, and they really want you to go away. They're concerned about who you're going to put in the house. Are you going to have people moving in and out? Every single time I buy a property, I make an effort to go out and meet the neighbors. And I explained to them that I am not interested in running down their neighborhood. I'm not that type of landlord. I don't just put anybody in these houses. I put the most qualified applicant possible in these houses because I respect the neighborhoods that I buy these houses in. I don't want to run down the neighborhood any more than they want their neighborhood run down. That doesn't do me any good. It doesn't do them any good. And happy neighbors make for a happy experience all across the board. So I always be sure to let them know I'm gonna put in the most qualified tenant I can possibly find for their neighborhood. I'm not just gonna stick somebody in there. I will take my time and wait for that good quality tenant to come along because they will. I don't rent to dangerous people with a dangerous history. I'm not looking to bring a negative aspect into their neighborhood. It's very important to me to buy homes in good, respected neighborhoods because that's where you get good tenants and that's where you have a good investment and that's where you have a good experience. And I'm not looking to do anything in that neighborhood that takes away from that good experience for the neighbors, for my tenants, or for even myself. But having those conversations with neighbors doesn't get the job done. So you've got to have a really thick skin because in my experience, the only way to show the neighbors of your rental property that you are not going to trash their neighborhood is through time. It takes a lot of time to prove to them that you are going to take care of the property, that you're going to place good tenants, that you're going to be respectful of their neighborhood, and that you're going to add to it and not take away from it. And you can't do that in a conversation. You have to do that through action, and that takes time. But you're going to have a thick skin when you initiate that conversation because they are going to tell you all the reasons why they don't want you there. Now, the last reason I'm going to talk about today, not the final reason, because there's so many reasons why you're going to have a thick skin, but the last reason I'm going to talk about today that you need to have a really thick skin as a landlord is that people are going to constantly tell you all the reasons why they would never be a landlord, why it's a terrible idea, why it's the hardest way in the world to make money, why it's such a difficult thing to do, why it's just not worth the hassle. You're going to hear all these things. And let me tell you, the people who are going to be sharing this information with you, all of these negative things, trying to protect you from all these terrible things coming your way, if you're a landlord, I've almost always never been a landlord. Never. I can count 2 people who have told me why they would never be a landlord again because they had been a landlord. Each of those 2 people had exactly one experience, and they were very, very, very emotionally invested to their properties. And that created challenges in them trying to be a landlord and manage those properties as investment properties. Everyone else, and there are many, 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 many people who have shared with me all the reasons why they would never be a landlord, have never been landlords. So in my mind, that just goes to show all the negative ideas about what it is to be a landlord in our society. And when you get that a lot, it can be taxing if you let it. Fortunately for me, I was one of those people that was born with a really thick skin. Of course, I'm like everybody else. You know, when you meet people, you like them, you want them to like you. But if they don't, I'm okay with that. There are, over 7 billion people on this planet. And I am absolutely okay with the fact that, even most of them are not going to like me because I'm not going to meet 7 billion people on the planet. They can dislike me from afar. I don't know. When I go to the grocery store, I don't know what those hundreds of other people in the grocery store are thinking of me right now. And I don't even consider it because 1, it's absolutely none of my business. And 2, there's nothing I can do about it. So 3, I'm not going to worry about it. In my experience, having that perspective and having the thick skin has served me really well. I've not ever really been one to be afraid to march to my own beat. What is that saying? You should march to the sound of your own drum or march to your own beat or whatever. Clearly I don't know the saying. But whatever it is, I have never been one that's really been afraid to think what I think and decide for myself and live life on my own terms and build a community and surround myself with people who are like-minded and capable of doing the same thing. Sometimes that community consists of a really big, large group of people, and sometimes it's a really tight circle, but either way, it's where I want to be. Now, I believe it's because I have this thick skin, my ability to not let other people's thoughts and opinions change how I live in my day-to-day world and what I think and feel about myself and my world that I live in. That has allowed me to be successful. And if people agree, fantastic. And if you don't agree, that's okay too. There's more than one way to be successful in this world, but I will tell you this. My advice to you is if you want to be a landlord, if you want to be a buy and hold real estate investor and manage your own properties as a landlord, the one thing you have got to develop, if you don't have it already, is a thick skin. Now I'm going to leave you with one more point. Just because I have this perspective and I am so confident in making my own decisions for myself based on my own thoughts and my own conclusions, I think it's so important that people are able to say what they want to say. They're able to speak their truth, even if it disagrees with mine. I'm okay with that. And that's why I was not afraid to have this comment exchange with that person on the Bigger Pockets video, because they were speaking their truth. Even though their truth was very different from mine and didn't change mine, they still have the right to their beliefs. They still have the right to speak their truth. They still have the right to voice their opinion. I can hear that. I can consider it. I can think about it. I can research it. I can put all the thought and effort into it I want to, and still stand in my own conclusion with confidence. So this thick skin doesn't mean I don't care what anybody else thinks. I don't care what anybody else has to say. What it means is I can hear you. I can think about it. I can digest it. I can take it into consideration. I can change my opinion, or I might not. And either way, it's okay, because it doesn't change who I am in the world, and it doesn't change how I'm going to continue to run my business, and it doesn't change anything else about me. So what I am not saying this morning is that having a thick skin is a pass to be some kind of jerk in the world. That's not it at all. I can respect a lot of different opinions and hear a lot of different opinions, even especially those that are so different from mine, because that's how we learn from one another. It's not necessarily going to change how I manage my business and move through my world, but it might influence how I, do things. I don't know. If you think you've got a thick skin and you want to have a real test of it, find out for sure if you've really got a thick skin, start a YouTube channel. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, go ahead, start a YouTube channel. Drop down into the comments below. Let me know what your channel is. We'll check it out. My point is this: if you're going to be a landlord, you got to have a thick skin. And developing a thick skin is really going to serve you in so many different ways in your life that even if you don't want to be a landlord, it's still a damn good thing to have. It takes time, it takes work, but it's totally anyway, that's all I have for you on this stormy, rainy morning in Texas. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for a few minutes. I do hope you will consider subscribing to the channel if you want to hear all the good and all the bad that comes along with the landlord life. I'm looking forward to sharing more and more. I've got so much stuff coming your way. So please do consider hitting that subscribe button down below, ringing the bell so you can be notified of all the videos coming your way. Check out the other channels, maybe Boat Life Lori or Life with Lori, and hang out with me over there if you're not so interested in the real estate stuff, or be a superhero. Subscribe to all three. So until I see you in the next video, bye y'all.